All right, I'm starting the recording. Take it away, Andrea and Nathan.
Okay, well, thank you very much and welcome everyone. As she said, we're going to discuss closing the loop, how we use data from Quality Matters reviews to improve instructional improvement on our campus. And we are coming from a small private institution, so trying to gather that data and then use it is sort of like hunting for Sasquatch. So that's kind of the nickname of our title here, is Searching for Sasquatch. So we'll first by a little bit about our institution. As we're a small private based institution in rural West Virginia. We did have a very significant change in our body, our composition, and our operations since 2012. We had around 650 students in 2012. A new president came in, entirely different enrollment model, and we've quickly up to around 1,000 students by 2014. Most of those students then and even today are student athletes. So they have a lot of different activities, and we saw we had to start reaching them and teaching them in different ways. We also have, for a small rural school, a very, very diverse student body. This year specifically, we have students from 35 states, 19 foreign countries. So that makes it very challenging, especially right now when we are all entirely remote learning, to make sure that we're reaching all of those students. Go ahead, Nathan, to the next slide if you want to. So that very rapid increase in student body, as well as in the changing composition, again, prior to 2020, most of our students were from West Virginia and the surrounding states, not so anymore. So there was a demand for more hybrid courses as well as for online courses. So you can see in the academic year 2013-2014, we offered a grand total of 9 100% online courses. Last year, we now have 2 fully online degree programs. We are seeking a third one, and our summer courses have gone pretty much entirely online. We have all those students scattered. They go home to those 35 states, 19 foreign countries. They don't want to continue to take courses in a seated format, so we've had to shift our summer offerings entirely online. So that, I think, in some ways has helped us over the past month, but what we needed with this vast and rapid increase was some way to ensure we were still giving quality to our students. So I'm going to turn it over now to Nathan, who's our Director of Instructional Design, and let him talk a little bit about the beginnings of a committee to attempt this endeavor. So Nathan?
Well, let me actually go back to the previous slide for just a second, because I want to make clear when I came into this process. I came in this 2014 era, and when we started to put these changes into place was right after the 2014 year, right before the growth sort of took off with everything that we were doing. Being a small campus, as anyone who is on a small campus knows, you wear many different hats and you take on many different roles. And as part of that, not only am I the Director of Instructional Design, but I also have certain other requirements. I teach different courses on campus. I also am sort of the general technical fix-it guy, go-to. If somebody has an idea or they want to sort of build something out a little bit, they also come to me. The reason that I tell you that is to let you know that we had to find a way to sort of share this responsibility. It was too much for one person to be able to take on the entire process. So the online program committee was sort of reformed from prior committees that were there in order to establish and build those policies for online education at Alderson Broaddus. And as you can see, one of the charges of the committee is to collect, to analyze, and to interpret the data on course development to make sure that it's a quality process online. And in putting that together, we brought in our online administrator, which is Andrea, amongst her many other titles, myself as the Director of Instructional Design, the director of our IT department, and then one representative from each of our colleges serving on a 2-year rotating term. So when you do two terms, you fall off, somebody else comes back on. Part of the idea behind this was that as we progress through the cycles with people coming on and coming off, they also gain more knowledge about online education in the first place, more knowledge about QM as they go through the process of being QM trained both with the courses that are offered and then also sort of what we do internally on the committee work as they work through this. So it was sort of a double-edged sword. And I can say, I think over the last couple of months, it's really helped us a lot because we've been able to establish some folks who've been able to work in a capacity that we would call a super user capacity to take some of that load off the instructional design department, and they can sort of fill those niches and those roles inside of their own campuses or their own colleges rather a little bit more effectively. And I think at least from that standpoint, maybe we weren't caught quite as flat-footed as other institutions would be. It wasn't such a dramatic change. Well, it's still dramatic, but it wasn't that dramatic. It could have been a lot worse, let me say it that way.
Okay, so that committee is, again, everyone it takes at a minimum APP QMR, so they have some idea of how to apply the rubric to online courses. The rotating basis for the faculty members is good because can share what they've learned from the committee with their faculty colleagues when they get back to their colleges. It's also in some ways bad because just when we get some trained and comfortable with how to conduct a course review, then they tend to leave and we have to bring someone else. We have not to this point submitted any courses for official QM reviews. We're just not quite there yet, but we're getting closer. So all of our reviews up to this point have been internal. We follow a process that's fairly similar to what QM follows. We do have a 3-person team. I review every course, Nathan reviews every course, and then we have 1 committee member. We have you need 2 out of 3 in order for a standard to be met, same sort of rule. We also make sure courses are mature. A course has to be taught at least twice before the online programming committee will review it. So all of that is very, very similar to what Quality Matters does. Here's how we differ, however. As most of you know, on an official QM review, if standard 2 isn't met, you stop. We don't do that. We continue to do the course for all of the standards. We think that feedback, regardless of what it is, very, very valuable to faculty. So even if their standard 2 is not met, we go ahead and provide them feedback for all of the standards. Because we are small, we also typically cannot have a subject matter expert on the reviews. A lot of our departments are 1-person departments, so you don't want a person reviewing their own course. And in some of our disciplines, I would hesitate even to have a different professor review just to avoid the, well, he doesn't do it the way I would type of philosophy. So that's a little bit of how we differ. Our challenge was with the internal reviews is, okay, you know, we worked with our online programming committee, we got them trained, we conducted the internal reviews, but then what? So most of what we're going to talk about from now to the end of the session is basically communication lines. How we now have this data from the review, how do we share it, and then more importantly, how do we get people to close the loop and actually use the data to improve student learning in their courses. So I'll turn it, Nathan, you want to add anything before you talk more specifically about the spreadsheet?
Other than the fact that I'm glad you mentioned how sometimes that backfires, because you do have the faculty members, they're trained, they're good committee members, they have our system down and our process, and just as soon as they get to that point, then they're off and they're gone. And that does create some issues and some problems because you've got to break in a whole new committee member. One of the good things about being a small school is, especially with smaller colleges, is the fact that even if you fall off the committee at one point, sometimes you end up falling back on the committee again. So I don't want to see you get a retread or a recycled faculty member, but that's kind of exactly what happens. They've been on the committee, they've gone somewhere else, and now they've come back for another 2-year term. So that helps a little bit as far as this goes. Now, one of the things that we should mention with this is, since one of the charges of the committee is to collect and analyze the data, we needed a way that we could look at this data in a quick and easy format, something that, you know, would show us just sort of the raw scores of what people were scoring in terms of the QM review. So what we did was to create an Excel spreadsheet, and I'll give you an example of that spreadsheet, and I'll actually let you have a blank copy of that you can take and use and do whatever you would like with in just a couple of minutes. But once we've collected the information from all three of those reviews, the raw scores, as we mentioned, and the feedback, that's sent to me, and then we compile it into this master spreadsheet. The master spreadsheet, along with all of the faculty, is then sent to the faculty and to the dean, and as it would be appropriate, the chair of the department. The idea behind this is that we have to have that collaboration with others that are in our academic leadership to push this through and to make this initiative work and to make this initiative grow. We should point out with this that all of our deans are required to complete the APPQMR course, which most, even at this point, everybody's up to speed on that, aren't they?
Yes.
I thought we'd gotten everybody through that just in time before everything sort of exploded with the COVID situation. But the QM reviews are actually and should be part of the annual faculty evaluation process. We have, whereas not all of our faculty teach online, we do have a mandate on campus that all courses include some components of our learning management system, which is Moodle, in case you were interested, into their courses, including grade books and spreadsheets. Again, I think that's helped us a little bit with this because most people aren't terribly unfamiliar with the system, but that's another presentation for another day. Let's take a look at what this spreadsheet looks like a little bit. Now you'll see with this, we have the QM standard, the assigned point values, and then the information from reviewer 1, reviewer 2, and reviewer 3. Now the way that we have it set up is it'll automatically total this based on the numbers that they put in here. By default, you can only select the appropriate point value. So you can't go through here and put a 2 where it should be a 3. You know, it's an all or nothing situation. And that's been one of the things that we sort of had to work with some of the committee members. They'd say, well, I'd like to give this a 2. It doesn't work that way. It'll come out in the wash when we get that done. But you'll see how that information is collected with this. One of the things, if you would like to have this, feel free to take out your smartphone that's probably next to you, much like mine is, and just capture the QR code. You'll be driven onto a link that's going to allow you to have your own personal copy of that, to have, to hold, to love, to honor, and cherish for the rest of all time, or to throw away if you don't find any use with it. Feel free to use that in any way and in any capacity that you would want. If you want me to change the names, the formulas, whatever, I give you full and complete permission to do that, to make it work at your institution, however it would be helpful.
Yeah, go ahead and leave that up there for another minute or two, Nathan, so everybody has a chance to capture it. And the idea behind this spreadsheet is, when you use an internal review through the QM system, it's a lot to scroll through and read through. We wanted to have something that we could use again internally, where a faculty member could very quickly look at it and say, oh, what areas was my course found to not meet? Make it a little easier for them to find the information that they needed. So now this session was originally presented as an active learning session. So now comes the active learning part. So here's where we would encourage you to put comments and questions into the chat. So let's go ahead. We have 3 case studies here, and these are based on real people from our campus.
This is where I wanted, not to interrupt you, but I wanted to put in a clip of the Law and Order dun dun when these would come up, because it was ripped from the headlines. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. I guess that's the Dragnet theme that we should put in there, but just so you know. One of the things, and you may be wondering why we have pictures of like this guy over here, and why part of the whole searching for Sasquatch concept with this. For those of you who have never been to West Virginia, we have a very strong legacy, if you want to put it of that, in terms of monsters and different types of creatures that go bump in the night. And we thought it would be fun to throw a few of these guys in to tell you a little bit about them while we're going through this, because we are searching for the data analysis monster in all of this.
Yeah. And if you think you know who this is, feel free to go ahead and add that to the chat as well. So. Yeah,
and we'll give you a little history about who he actually is when we get finished with this particular case study.
Okay, so case number 1 is the stagnant course. So Johnny Irons, his course has been reviewed several times by the online programming committee, with feedback being duly given each and every time. The course is very very so close to meeting the QM standards. Further,
Sorry.
yeah. But the last couple of reviews, just not much has changed. It's close, but it just can't quite get over the hurdle. Suggestions are made for the feedback, but the next time the course is reviewed, it doesn't seem like those changes are being implemented. So what suggestions would you all have? Have you ever anything like this at your home campuses? And what did you do to address this type of situation? Go ahead and feel free to put things into the chat. So.
And somebody guessed Mothman.
Yeah, the Mothman. Okay.
That is correct. That
Yes.
is Mothman. Mothman's pretty famous in West Virginia, at least. And if you want to learn more about him, it's a quick Google search. But he first appeared around the time there was a bridge collapse over on the Ohio River. I believe it was Point Pleasant. It was the Silver Bridge, or the Silver City Bridge, collapsed, and he appeared around that time. So he's always kind of been associated as a harbinger of evil type of a situation. And there's been a couple of movies that have been based around him as well. There's a festival in that general area every year where monster hunters from across the country come, and they sort of get together and share. The UFO enthusiasts and the Bigfoot hunters and the Mothman hunters and all of this, they get together and they sort of talk it out. There's, like I said, it's a whole festival. It's pretty interesting if that's your thing.
Okay, I'm not seeing much come up on the chat. I don't know if it's just delayed or, okay, here we go. Someone's suggesting a meeting with the department to see if there's any way that they can help. So go ahead, Nathan, if you want, to the slide. And
All right, let me close the chat panel there.
And that was actually one of the things that we did, in fact, implement. We started to have branding iron. That's cute as well. I like that chat suggestion. But yes, we did. We finally decided, hey, some face-to-face sessions focusing on the key areas that are most likely not met. What we did was we used our own faculty. We pulled out some examples of here's how, Professor so-and-so is doing this. We tried to get some discussion across discipline. What can, the natural sciences learn from the humanities and so forth. And it was actually after one of these sessions that one of those sort of stagnant faculty came to us and said, now I get it. I was seeing the written, here's the comments, here's the suggestions, but now that I've seen these examples from other faculty and seen some of the best practices, now I get it. So that's exactly what we're doing. We did kind of need the branding iron suggestion to make people come to these because, unless you bribe them or unless you have the power of the Provost's office or President's office to say everybody will be at this, it's hard to do. So we have a week before and after the fall and the spring semesters where we do faculty development. So we utilize those times when everyone would be available. And so just that talking it through, looking at some examples we found was very, very helpful. Anything else from any participants before we move on? Okay, Ethan, you want to take the next case?
All right, this is the case of Robert Cooley, and he's the only professor in underwater basket weaving discipline that we have. We really don't have underwater basket weaving, but you get the idea. He was asked to transition his seated course into an online delivery format. The dean granted this request, and he met with the ID. Well, that was me. And then we planned through the course, but when it came to the final course design, he did not include several of the necessary requirements that we had to have in the course. And then even after several reviews by the online programming committee, this went through once, it went through 2 times, he fails to make any of these changes. And he's gone back to his coworkers and he has publicly stated that no one will ever tell me how to teach my course ever, period. Throw in a couple of other choice words that you might include here. We would be interested to know how you all would handle this type of a situation, and then we'll tell you how it was handled at our institution. So if you take just a moment and include your thoughts there in the chat, and we'll sort of share those back with everybody. Okay.
I think this relates to our last case, but I see here that Rick said they've had a similar problem, is just trying to convince faculty to take the time that they need to make the necessary changes.
And
Rick,
I don't think, oh,
Rick,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
sorry, I'm just, Rick has also stated a big thing that they do on their campus is to make sure that they're not attacking, make sure it's clear they're not attacking academic freedom. They're just, and they also provide nominal incentives for designing and improving courses. So that's, and I think that was part of Robert's issue with the, no one's going to tell me how to teach my course. And that is something that we do try to explain to people, is there's a lot of different ways you can meet these standards. It's just, we want you to meet them one way or another. So
Exactly.
emphasizing QM has data to back up their rubric. That's especially for your STEM faculty, sometimes that's also very helpful to share. So. Okay, so now Nathan will walk you through how we handled this.
With this particular individual, it was incredibly important that we had the support of the dean. And you can see ultimately what led to the process that we went through here. I hate to call it a progressive discipline type situation, but that's really a good analogy to put with this. It was included as part of their faculty evaluation. It went through a performance improvement plan process and ultimately ended up in a non-renewal of the appointment. This was not a tenured faculty member, so that was an option that we had. And unfortunately, we actually had to exercise that in this particular instance. You always sort of hate to do that. I mean, sometimes it's a good process because you can, you can sort of cut the fat. I hate to say it that way, but you can have a better result in the end. But unfortunately, this particular resistant faculty was so resistant that we had to sort of take this more dramatic step and say, you know what, you're just not, it's just not working out here for us. So
that's one of the challenges, I think, on our campus, and free to add to the chat if you face something similar on your own at your own institution. But online programming committee has no direct supervision over the faculty, nor do I. Even as the associate provost, I have no direct supervision over the faculty. So we being the online programming committee, we can share with the faculty and their dean. Their dean or chair gets a copy of every single course review that the online programming committee does. So we can share that information with them. We really then have to trust that the dean will step in and work with the faculty to implement the suggestions and the recommendations that we're making. So that's why that with and the support of the dean is critical. It's also one of the reasons that we now require all of the deans to at least take APPQMR, because it eliminates the excuse of, oh, well, I don't really understand online teaching myself. If they've at least had that much of a background, the dean should be able to step in and nudge, push whatever, even more seriously through PIPs or non-renewals, the faculty to implement the recommendations that the online programming committee is suggesting.
And Lauren, Travis, I couldn't agree with what you said more in the chat. That is the exact purpose of the review, is to expose the flaws. And, ultimately we want to improve on those flaws. And then when you can't, sometimes you have to sort of, drop the hammer a little bit and make the cuts. And I couldn't agree more with what you had to say there.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely spot on. Back to the other window.
Okay. All right, so we just talked about how important it is to have the support of the dean. Well, what if your dean is not very effective? So this is the case of Russell England, and he was one of our deans. We had 5 colleges, and so he was one of the deans of our 5 colleges. He himself had never taught an online course. Copies of all the reviews of the courses were shared with him. Faculty from his college, though, told us that those reviews were never ever discussed with them, and in fact, the dean really did not engage in a regular process of faculty evaluation at all. So obviously that's a big challenge if nothing's happening once the review gets to the dean and the faculty were sort of stymied. So again, if you've faced anything like this on your institutions, share us some of your suggestions or comments. How would you handle this?
And just so you're aware that the monster in the corner here is not Russell England. But we would be curious to see if you guys have any idea who he may be. I know you can probably Google this and find out, the famous monsters of West Virginia. We'd ask that you don't do that, just to play along with that. But if you do know, let us know who that might be. We'll fill you in here in just a second.
Yes, Lauren asked a question that were made available to faculty. Yes, a copy is given to the faculty and to dean, and then of course we maintain copies in our office. Okay, Danielle has a suggestion to use student feedback and during course evaluations with online programming evaluations. Often you can see that there is a talk to the department about discussing reviews and how making those benefits does improve the student. And,
all right, before we move on and let you know what actually happened in our circumstance, let me tell you who this guy is down here in the corner. This is the Flatwoods Monster. And to understand the Flatwoods Monster, you have to, you're right, Rick, it was a really touchy situation. You're kind of almost getting ahead of where we're going with this. You can sort of see the writing on the wall. To understand the Flatwoods Monster, he originated in Flatwoods, West Virginia, which is famous in our state for being the geographic center of the state. If you're going to go anywhere in West Virginia on the interstate, you pretty much have to pass through Flatwoods. It's one giant truck stop. He appeared in and around the 50s during the whole UFO era issues. There's a famous museum for him there. Apparently he would terrorize teenagers who went out for a drive, that sort of thing, would stop and harass people continually. Again, there's been some movies about him. He and the Mothman are both wrapped up in that festival a little bit. So if you ever find yourself in West Virginia and you don't have anything else to do, you might want to stop by and check him out a little bit there at the museum with that. So what we did,
let's just move on a couple of the last comments that have come in. Rachel has shared, positive peer pressure. And we have started, once we did have our first courses, met the QM rubric, we did have a very public, here's a gift for you, here's the certificate you can stick in your personnel file, things of that. So we have tried to do that. Unfortunately, there's a section of our faculty who they don't really care if they get left behind. So that's been, maybe that's just on our campus. Brenda
we can sacrifice them to the Mothman.
Maybe. Just commented, since the dean doesn't seem to know what to do with the information, have a meeting with him. And yes, so let's go ahead, Nathan, now to the next slide if you want. And
you can see in this instance that we went through our entire administration situation, and ultimately, as I think it was Rick said, this provost needs to step in, and that's exactly what happened here. And Dean England was not renewed for that position and ultimately left for other employment elsewhere for the entire university.
Then there were several changes made. Again, as we have already talked about, we now require all the deans to complete some QM training. And there had been meetings with this particular dean, not just about QM, but about, hey, you're not even giving annual evaluations to your faculty, you need to do this. The dean himself was from performance improvement plan, and for whatever reason, it was not helpful. So where we had to go, I had to go to my supervisor, the provost, and something has to be done. So again, you not only need support of faculty and support of deans, but you need support of the upper administration as well. And so with her support, Dean England's contract was not renewed. We now have a new individual in that deanship, and we're starting to see the tide turn already in that particular college. And so we'll see what happens as we move forward. But yeah, the lines of communication and getting others on campus to buy in to why is this really critical to make sure that we have quality student learning has been a very slow process, but I think we're finally there on our campus. So anything else you'd want to add, Nathan?
No, I just think that, again, the timing behind all of this, at least in this scenario, I think it worked to our benefit. I can't imagine working in the world that we have to work in right now if some of these changes hadn't come through when they did. Certainly the timing of the virus has not been a good thing for anyone, but it could have been much more devastating for us had we not had some of these procedures put in place and made some of these changes when we did. I can't imagine being in a situation like this 2 years ago. It would have been, I don't know what I would have done, actually. It would have been very, very difficult. So we found that as we go through this process, we have to have certain weapons in place as we go out to hunt these monsters and to hunt through and find that data analysis gremlin that we've spoken about before. And the best way that we found to do that is to create and build alliances from within the different schools themselves. One of the presentations earlier in the day, it may have been the keynote, I can't quite remember, mentioned that the best way to enact change sometimes is not from the top down, but to create that change from from the middle and work its way out and through. And that certainly has proven true in our situation. Sometimes when I don't want to say that we sit on high and command these edicts to go out, and that's certainly not the way that it's done. We have a shared governance system. But for whatever reason, I think that even in my position to a certain extent, certainly in Andrea's position, there's a little bit of a disconnect sometimes between the administration and the faculty. It's not as bad for me because I'm also actually faculty, as is Andrea's still, but there's always a little bit of distrust, I think, when you start to look at the administration building versus the others. And we've been able to identify certain people in the colleges that have been able to work as our allies to sort of spread this information around. With that, we have had to have the alliances and the support from all levels of the administration. The deans, the provost's office, and ultimately even the president has made it very clear that these are initiatives that he wants to see pushed through. And I don't think that we would be able to actually be in the position we are today without those alliances from those necessary sources and those necessary places.
And, yeah, one of the things that we also realized is that we need to be very clear what our policies are, because faculty are not shy about saying, oh, but that's not what the faculty handbook says. So we have to, one of the weapons that we can have is very clear and specific policies relating to what's required for online course development review, what are the benefits to faculty if your course meets versus so very clear policy, faculty evaluation, promotion, and tenure. I did have a conversation with a dean once who says, I have some faculty who are doing a great job with their online courses and some who are not, but our faculty evaluation process doesn't specifically say evaluate your faculty based upon online learning. And I said, no, but our faculty evaluation policies do say effectiveness of teaching, and certainly that's part of it. And the dean was like, oh yeah, I understand that. So those clear policies are very, very critical, I think, to give the support you need when you're trying to make changes. And I don't want to make today entirely about COVID-19, but it's the world we're living in right now. Those policies have helped us, and several people have commented in the chat. It's been a little less traumatic for some of your campuses because you have these policies and procedures in place. And we were very clear to tell faculty when this all started, we don't expect your courses to meet QM. But we were able to pick and choose our online course development policies. We do expect that it will meet this, 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 and this, maybe not the entire rubric. So just being able to pick out the student communication and feedback policies and things of that nature, I think helped everyone to have a little better perspective as to what we were actually expecting from them. Nathan, several people are commenting in the chat about who they think this guy is on the screen. I love your comment. His name is Daryl. Yes. So.
Well, that's actually not Daryl. This is Dwayne. This is Dwayne, Daryl's Appalachian cousin. just to put it in perspective, but that is obviously supposed to be the one and only, the legendary, the mythical Bigfoot. I know when we were putting this presentation together and we were going to take it out and do it sort of in the for everybody there in California, everybody thinks that Bigfoot is a Western type creature. There have been supposed Bigfoot sightings about 30 miles from my house. Now, I don't know how true any of that is. If you know anything about West Virginia, you can't go 30 miles without running into, woods and terrain. So it's entirely possible that could be the case if you believe in such a thing. But supposedly he does also exist here, or at least, his Appalachian cousins, Dwayne and the rest of the family there. But you are correct. That is supposed to be the one and only Bigfoot.
Okay, so we've made a lot of progress, and I'm very happy with our current state of online learning. Again, this transition I think has been easier on us than it would have been had we not been working so meticulously toward this. But we still have some challenges, and again, feel free to the chat as we talk about these. We have a lot of courses that I refer to as a stealth online course. Typically, when to develop an online course, we do work with them before they even start. We have sort of a blueprint that they have to follow. They have to meet with Nathan, someone from Instructional Design, to kind of sit down and work through the kinks to begin. We've found we actually have a lot of people who aren't doing that, but yet they've been putting, even prior to COVID-19, they were putting all their content in the learning management system and not really meeting with students much at all. Perhaps that was intentional, trying to avoid the requirements of QM. Perhaps it was just, it's hard to think, it would be accidental. For whatever, that's been a challenge for us, is what do we do about those stealth online courses that are trying to avoid any sort of rigor. Our first challenge has been finding out about them, and a lot of times that's because a student will complain, and so then we can research. But until we even find out about those courses that are out there, it's been a challenge. We have had, in the past couple of years, several courses who have met the QM rubric, at least through our internal reviews, and so now we're presented with a different challenge of how to sure those courses don't become stagnant. What can we do to make sure they still have a level of continuous improvement? And so we're still working on that, and maybe trying to get those people together to discuss, okay, now what's the next step? So that'll be something that the online programming committee will be reviewing. And this is actually a change that we first presented, Nathan and I first presented this in Texas last fall, and even since that conference, we've actually changed the title and the responsibilities of the online programming committee to distance learning committee, because we actually have several programs that are now hybrid in nature. We have some low residency weekend programs and things of that nature. So prior to this change in policy and change in standards for the committee, those hybrid courses were just sort of on their own. They weren't online, so the online programming committee didn't necessarily have responsibility or purview for oversight. And so we've changed all that. So now there will be some limited review of hybrid courses. What we were finding was, again, sort of the stealth hybrid course. A lot of our faculty would complain, well, so many athletes and they have to travel to go play games on weekends, so I'm just going to make all of my Friday classes online sessions. So therefore those courses immediately become hybrids. You have 2 days of meetings, Friday being entirely online. until this policy change and change to the online programming committee, we had no way to maintain rigor, or there was no body that had responsibility for oversight of those courses. So again, they're not truly online courses, so we expect QM compliance, but again, we'll probably be pulling pieces of the QM standards. At a minimum, your hybrid course, the distance learning portion of your hybrid course should meet these items. And so that's brand new. We've just passed those changes through our Dean's Council this week. It'll be something we'll implement in the fall. So Nathan and I would love any questions that you all might have for that. Our contact information is on the last slide, but Nathan here, someone has asked to have the QR code shown again. So
give me just a second.
If you want to go back to that one. And then if you have, well, he's showing the QR code. If there are any questions put in the Q&A, we can address those. So anything else you'd like, Nathan?
I think we've really sort of got to the nature of what we've intended with today's presentation to put this through. It was a little bit of a challenge to sort of convert this into the online format. I'm sure everybody who's presented today has worked around that. I know I certainly appreciate you guys letting us have the opportunity to deliver this in this format to the conference, and sort of stuck with us as we maybe stammered through this just a little bit as we're getting used to this new world that we live in. And I know that I certainly appreciate that. I know that Andrea does as well. Has everybody had enough time to have a copy of the QR code? If not, the recordings will be available for everybody who is in attendance, for everybody at the conference. You can always go back and grab that. I just want to draw your attention again, if you have any questions or issues that we don't necessarily get to in the presentation, our contact information is also listed there. I know I speak for myself, I speak for Andrea. If you have a follow-up question, even after the conference is over, please feel free to shoot us an email. We'd love to sort of pick your brain and share what information we can and work with everybody to have a better process and a better product at the end for everybody that's involved with this. I see that we have a Q&A question that's come in.
Yeah. You compiled your data from reviews to see if you have areas at your university as a whole that could improve. I would say the area, and this is probably, you're not going to be shocked to hear this, but the area that most courses were not meeting was standard 2, the assessment, student learning. So we very closely with the assessment committee. Fortunately, I also have the responsibility of chairing that group. So we actually did sort of a joint professional development session one May after the conclusion of our academic year to talk about alignment of learning resources and learning materials, learning activities to student learning outcomes. And we've seen some improvement there. How do you conduct reviews of alignment when 2.1 and 2.2 are not met? And it's hard to complete standard 2 if those 2 are not met, as well as many of the others later on. That's why we've turned to the assessment committee to say, hey, obviously this is a weak part. And we've had to sort of work and pig with them. One of the things on the spreadsheet, you saw the very last column was comments. And we will put in there, you know, can't assess this piece because, you know, the student learning outcomes weren't present or they weren't measurable or whatever. And just have to keep repeating that. A lot of times this, we can't review because of the deficiencies in the assessment plan. And so, you know, our focus there then is we can give that data to the assessment committee, and they can take that and then incorporate that into their activities. And overall, I think we've seen an improvement in that campus-wide, online as well as seated courses. So I think we have just a few minutes, but we are nearing the end of our time. Again, our contact information is on the very last slide. We would love, again, if you have suggestions we haven't thought about, especially with those continuing challenges, we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to have a copy of the spreadsheet or anything else that we've shared, we'd be willing to give that to you as well. So thank you, everyone. We're over here on the East Coast, so it's going to actually start to get dark outside here soon. So I hope the rest of you are going to have some more sunshine today.
All right, thanks so much, Andrea and Nathan. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.